I've got a three-part video for you today. The first two parts are going to be for people who don't know very much about the pentagram. So there's going to be a description of the history and meanings of the pentagram. And then the second part is going to be an introduction to the LBRP, the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. But the third part is the part that may interest slightly more advanced practitioners. And that is, well, possibly a slightly let's say controversial question that I have for you, and if you've got any thoughts on it, I'd be very grateful for any help. So let's get started. So the very first known instances of the pentagram, of course, is in Mesopotamia, where it was a symbol to represent a small nook or a cranny, something along those lines. Now, as you can imagine, something as simple and universal as a five-pointed star is going to mean many different things to many different people. Well, in early Egypt and in Gaul, it's a symbol that we find associated with fortune. In Hebrew tradition, it's associated with truth. Then we have the early Christians who see it as the five wounds of Christ. Then we've got the Rosicrucians a little later, who then start using it as a symbol of earth. And when we look at the Rider-Waite tarot deck with its coins representative of the world of Asiya, the world of earth, on those coins we can see those pentagrams. The Pythagoreans, actually way earlier, use it very much the same way as many ceremonial magicians use it today, and that is to represent the five elements. Now, they saw the five elements as air, water, earth, heat, and idea, but you can see that the parallels are, that they're clearly right there. It appears over here in, this is Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, where it's described as the virtue of number 5 hath a very great command over evil spirits. So by its lineature, by which it hath within 5 obtuse angles, right, 5 obtuse, 1, and without 5 acutes, right, so that's the extremities, the acute angles on the extremities there, without, on the outside, that is to say. By which it is surrounded. The interior pentangle contains in it great mysteries, which also is to be inquired after and understood of the other figures regarding triangle, quadrangle, sexangle, septangle, etc., etc. 5 double triangles by which it's surrounded. So by double triangles he means identical triangles, right? In modern day Satanism, which Anton LaVey started in the 50s, 60s, they use the pentagram upside down with 3 points going downwards representing a rejection of the Trinity, and then 2 upward points representing disharmony, right, discord. It also represents, possibly in a more well-known way, it represents simply the head of the goat, representing Baphomet, with 5 Hebrew letters spelling out Leviathan on the outer circle. This is a symbol that is now quite, vilified amongst many Christians, should I say, and the rather nice meanings of the pentagram are more and more forgotten. There is another meaning, of course, and that is the perfect pentagram which the planet Venus describes in the sky every 8 years or so. And of course, Venus being the morning star, it is also associated with Lucifer. It might bear my reminding that, at least for ceremonial magicians, the entity of Lucifer and Satan and the devil are quite separate and certainly not equivalent. But the fact that this represents Venus has also made it a symbol for midwives traditionally, and Wiccans use it to this day as a symbol of the goddess Morgan, and to represent harmony and everything that is good. So now let me approach our second topic, and that is the LBRP, and that means, that is an acronym for the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. Now, I know that many of you watching already know the Lesser Banishing Ritual, the Pentagram, very well, but for those of you who might not be involved in ceremonial magic, it's probably the first ritual that most ceremonial magicians learn. In the Book of the Golden Dawn by Israel Regardie, where he published all of the initiatic papers of the Order of the Golden Dawn. It's the first ritual that is described. You see the lesser ritual of the pentagram, and this is the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. Just anything before this, I think it's page 50, 56. Anything before that is kind of an introduction. Then there is the first meditation, followed by how to perform the lesser ritual of the pentagram. So it shows you how to invoke and how to banish. The lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram is a ritual that is performed before most other rituals. It's considered a hygiene ritual. It's something that many people just like to do every day if they do nothing else. It's very well described in the Golden Dawn, but it's much better described in Israel Regardie's book called The Middle Pillar, in which he describes what should be going on internally as well, right? So just as a short description, if you're standing at your altar, right, facing the east, then you would go around your altar, and then over here you would point out your finger, and then you would put it down to the left-hand corner, right? So down over here, and then you would describe in the air a pentagram like this. While you're describing it, you would imagine that you are tracing with a blue flame that is leaving a line of pale blue flame in the air. And then you would put your finger in the center, a finger or ceremonial dagger if you happen to have one of those. And then you would say one of the names of God. You would say Yod He Vav He, and then keeping your finger through the center of the pentagram, you would then describe a quarter of a circle towards the south, right? So starting in the middle here, you would continue walking around the room or the temple or wherever you are, and then not moving your finger. You just put your finger down to the bottom left-hand corner once again. Yeah, down to the bottom left-hand corner, and describe once again a pentagram, flaming blue, still imagining all of this also, right? So you've now got two pentagrams in the air in flaming blue lines. And there, here you would say the second name of God, which would be Adonai. And you wouldn't just say it, you would resonate it. You would say it in a way that you can imagine it being heard to the other extremity of the universe, to the southernmost extremity of the universe. And then continuing with your finger or your dagger, you would continue just walking around the room over here. And once you got to the westernmost point, again, you would drop your finger to the bottom left-hand corner, describe your pentagram with that flaming blue line, put your finger through the center, and say the third name of God, which would be Eheye, which is I am, right, one of the names of God. And then you would conclude, not quite conclude actually, perform the fourth pentagram over here with the name of God of Agla. So Agla, like that, which is Ato Gevura Leolam Adonai. So you are great or powerful forever, O Lord. And then you would actually conclude by finishing where you started over here before going back in this direction to your initial position behind the altar. So that's the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. It's used in ceremonial magic. It's used in Wicca, from what I understand. It's used in many different traditions. And it is the most universal ritual that exists in modern magic. Okay, so this brings me to my third point, and that is a question of Whether this makes sense, the particular way that we make the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, does it make sense? This has been something that has been bothering me since I very first read about the invoking and banishing rituals of the pentagram. And it really came to a head when I read this, Mysteria Magica. Mysteria Magica is the third book of magic philosophy by Melita Denning and Osborne Phillips, who wrote a lot about various magic theories in the 1980s. This was their third book, and this is what they write about the invoking and banishing. In the Aurum Solis system, that is their system, when the pentagram is used in invocation, it's traced clockwise, commencing from the point attributed to the force to be invoked. So, for example, if you want to invoke water, you start at water and you go clockwise, ending at water. Okay, and then you use the appropriate divine name being vibrated meanwhile. When used in banishing, the pentagram is traced anti-clockwise from the point attributed to the force to be banished. So, if you want to banish water, then you also start at water and go anti-clockwise. That seems to me consistent. It seems consistent because of two things. First of all, it's always very clear how to invoke and how to banish. You go clockwise or anti-clockwise, starting and finishing with the thing that you want to invoke or banish. That seems like a good idea to me. Particularly since it can also then be applied to a heptagram, right, where you want to invoke or banish a particular planetary force. Then you start at the place of the planet and you go clockwise or anti-clockwise. So it's universally applicable. Okay, I'm also interested in this particular system because it speaks to these two words, Deosil and Widdershins. Now, these are fantastic words, and some of you probably know these two words. They are traditional magical words to mean clockwise and anti-clockwise. That is to say that traditionally, the direction in which something is done is important. It is directly attributed to whether you're invoking it or banishing it. It bothers me that, first of all, in this lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, two things are happening. We're supposed to be banishing, and yet we are going clockwise, and we are describing our pentagrams clockwise also. That doesn't seem like it's consistent with the idea of banishing. And quite on the contrary, rather seems consistent with invoking. Let's have a look at the banishing and invoking pentagrams as described in the Golden Dawn. To invoke Earth, we don't start at Earth, we start at Spirit. The first movement is towards Earth. Okay, so the first movement of whatever you want to invoke is from one step earlier towards the thing that you want to invoke. But there is no consistency in the direction that you're going. As you can see here, to invoke Earth, we're going anti-clockwise. To invoke fire, we're going clockwise. To invoke air, we're going anti-clockwise. To invoke water, we're going clockwise. So the clockwise or anti-clockwise seems to have no significance. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is that to invoke air, we have to go from water to air, right? So we're going anti-clockwise from water to air and finishing with water. What's the difference with banishing water, where we leave from water also? If you're invoking air, if you're banishing water, it's exactly the same thing. What is there to differentiate these two other than the symbols described inside, which you can only really draw if you're drawing it on an actual object. If you're creating a talisman, for example, then yeah, sure, you can draw these. But if you're performing an invoking or a banishing ritual of the pentagram, then all you're really drawing is the pentagram itself. Also, for invoking, we start at one point away from the thing that we want to invoke, and for banishing, we start at the thing that we actually want to banish. The logic seems flawed to me. I can't seem to find a reason for this system. I'm fully aware that very often these things are just not intuitive. For instance, I can fully see why the eagle represents water and the waves represent air, since the eagle is the alchemical symbol for woman, as opposed to the lion, alchemical symbol for man, and the woman is the cup, the water, in the Kabbalistic Hermetic worlds. And in the same way, the waves represent the symbol of Aquarius, which is one of the zodiac symbols of air. So, okay, I get that. There's an explanation at least. But where's the explanation for starting an invocation of earth at spirit and starting an invocation of fire at spirit, but invoking air, we have to start at water, and for invoking water, we have to start at air? Where's the rule? Yeah, that's my big question. So guys, if you've got any thoughts on that, please, by all means, leave a comment. If you've got actual information on that, then let me know where you got that information from, so that I know that it's not just come from thin air. And by all means, if you want to speculate, please, that's what the comments are there for. But do say when you're speculating or when you're actually getting information from an authoritative source, so that I and other viewers who are reading your comments later on can get an idea of how reliable that information is, or whether it's just simply something useful to think about. So thank you ever so much, everyone, for your patience and for taking the time to watch this whole video. And yeah, hopefully see you down in the comments section. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and to subscribe down below if you haven't already. And I'll see you very soon in another video.